Stanley Cup Final is set, and it'll be the defending Stanley Cup champion Tampa Bay Lightning against the underdog Cinderella run that we've seen from the Montreal Canadiens. Definitely did not expect that part of it, that's for sure. But predictions-wise, I said Lightning in 7. It ended up being Lightning in 7. I said Vegas-Montreal would go 6, but I got the wrong team. I said it would be Vegas, but it was Montreal. So first things first, Tampa versus Montreal is not your traditional Stanley Cup Final. These are teams that, since there's been realignment, the most recent realignment, which was the 2013-14 season, Tampa Bay and Montreal have been in the same division. And when they go back next year, they will be in the same division. So it is very odd to not see East versus West. So that's kind of the first thing. But I'm not going to lie, I am very happy that Tampa Bay beat the Islanders. Thrilled. Islanders versus Montreal would have been, oh boy, that would have been rough. Sure, would there have been a segment of NHL fans that would have been excited? Yeah. But it kind of in some ways would have, I think the Islanders, if there was Islanders-Montreal, I would have predicted Islanders. So that would have been the first series where I would have predicted the Islanders to win. That's how close they came to potentially winning a cup, which would have been, as a Ranger fan, a disaster. So thrilled that didn't happen. Yeah, I think with Tampa, this is just a juggernaut of a team. They are so good. They can beat you in any way. Goaltending, defense, they got the firepower. There's everything there. And what's interesting about Tampa Montreal, and we'll get into it a little bit after we review these semifinals matchups, but I think that it won't be as easy, I think, as people are making it seem. But how could you not favor Tampa? There's just no way around that. That's how good they are. So as far as the Lightning Islanders series, give the Islanders credit for making the series go as long as it did. There's no question, though, Tampa was just definitely the better team. They deserve to win this series, no question about it. And look, maybe the Coliseum, even though, again, they went 2-1, the Islanders, each time in their series at the Coliseum, which is good, right? I mean, that's excellent. But, it's funny, they did give up a game. It's not like they went undefeated there. But with that being said, I feel like that probably did, in some ways, will them to Game 7. But they were finding ways to win against Pittsburgh and Boston on the road. How, I don't know. I think there's different reasons for that. And again, credit for getting those wins. But the Islanders just got outshot like crazy on the road. And it made it a little bit surprising that Barry Trotz and company didn't make it more of an effort to get as high a seed as possible. Look, they only finished 4 points behind Tampa. Hey, who knows? Maybe if Game 7's at the Coliseum, maybe it's a different result. Maybe that should have been something that was a little bit more important. But again, clearly whatever Trotz has cooking works because, maybe, I'm not sure if it was intentional. I don't think it was, but at the end of the season, they definitely tailed off. But that's not the point. Tampa is so good. Ryan McDonough was excellent. And it really sheds to light just how bad that trade ended up being. The Ranger Lightning trade in 2018. Now, it made sense to trade McDonough at the time. They also traded JT Miller, who's since been traded from the Lightning, but the return was brutal. Brett Howden, Libor Hayek, Vlad Nemestikov, and a first and second round pick. The only hope is Nils Lundqvist. Nils Lundqvist can make that trade go from bad to not so bad. But, hey, when you look back at Jeff Gorton's tenure as Ranger general manager, that was horrible. And maybe one of the reasons why he was let go. And that was a trade that honestly looked bad at the time. Now, there was conditions that if the Lightning won the Stanley Cup in 2018 or 2019, the Rangers would have gotten, that second round pick would have become a first. So from a Ranger fan's perspective, I was very anti-Lightning in the fact that they beat the Rangers in 2015, which was devastating. That was a President's Trophy winning team. That was a team that came off a cup final. And then the Lightning, when I wanted them to win in 18-19, both couldn't get it done either year. But all is forgiven because they were able to knock off the Islanders in 2020 and 2021. So it's all good now. Again, McDonough, such an unsung guy on that team. They're loaded, completely loaded. And all they were battle tested for years. And some down times where in 15, they lost in the final to the Blackhawks. In 16, they were up 3-2 against the Penguins in the Eastern Conference Finals. Couldn't seal the deal. They lose. In 18 against Barry Trotz's Capitals, up 3-2, blow that one. 19, of course, the amazing Lightning team that got swept by Columbus. So they battled through a lot to get to this point, and it helps. The experience helps a ton. Like, Steven Stamkos, to me, I'm not even impressed by him at all. Like, he's not a huge factor, and they're still amazing. So as we go game by game one, honestly, Tampa just didn't show up. That's what it was. And the Islanders took advantage of that. They absolutely did. Tampa has had a knack for home game ones just not doing a whole lot and I think the rest of this series proved that out. Like, I was watching game one Islanders Tampa, and I'm thinking, the Tampa looks worse than Pittsburgh and Boston did against the Islanders. Like, what is going on here? So Islanders get that game one, but Tampa comes right back and wins game two. They never trail. And here's another thing that just comes to mind with the Islanders. Didn't have the lead once in 19 games after the first period. That's insane. That was a record. They totally blew the doors off that record. Yeah, I mean, it just had to end eventually. I don't know how. And again, like, the fact that they were able to come back a lot says a lot. Like, you cannot question the resilience of that team, but can you have a lead one game in 19 tries? It's kind of remarkable. But yeah, Tampa comes back in game two and was the better team, gets the job done. They did. And so, yeah, nothing. I'm not going to point anything too much individual-wise, at least at that stage. But yeah, so game three, it's a mindset for Tampa is, all right, we got to split this. We got to get home ice back. And they do that in game three. And in that one, they get a goal from the third line. The Yanni Gourde line was really good. It was Gourde, Coleman, and Goodrow. But Yanni Gourde in particular was excellent. That was someone who was noticeable all the time. Just a really good player and an underrated guy in that team. But what was important was Cal Clutterbuck scores in the second to tie it up at 1. There was a weird goal. Chernak tries to give it to Vasilevsky, and he loses it, and they score. And weird goal. So Islanders have a lot of momentum. Crowd's into it. And then the Lightning get a power play. And after the power play had expired, Brayden Point scores. Brayden Point scored in every game in the series besides Game 7. He had a 9-game goal streak in the playoffs dating back to the series before. Brayden Point is another guy that is just so good. Goes to the dirty areas, has a lot of skill. Just another guy in that team. Like, the drafting that Tampa has done over the years is nothing short of remarkable. Seriously, like what Steve Yzerman did, and now their current GM, his name, I can't remember, but like, just an amazing job. So Tampa is able to hold on. It was really, Islanders had moments in that third period, but Tampa really put on a clinic and is able to hang on and win. That was big. That was that one win that they end up getting at the Coliseum to get home ice back. So, but as the Islanders do, as they normally do, they win that game 4, which is what they did in the first 2 series. So it was shaping up as like the same exact kind of formula. And what was interesting in this game was the Islanders take a 3-0 lead going into the third. Tampa scores 2 goals, Point and Johnson. And then Ryan McDonough just makes an unbelievably amazing move. Varlamov's out of the net, and McDonough probably would have scored, but Ryan Pulock makes a great play to save a goal. Really just, a very, instinctive play by Pulock. An amazing move by McDonough. I can't believe that he even had that in him. So the Islanders hang on. And I said this on the last episode. The key to this whole thing was, for Tampa, either going up 2-0 or going up 3-2. And boy, did they go up 3-2. And that was the key. Somehow the Islanders were pulling off wins in game. Even Islander fans would admit that absolutely dominated in Game 5 at Pittsburgh and Game 5 at Boston. as well. I don't know how they won those games, but they did. That was no such thing here as Tampa wins 8-0. Just an absolute annihilation. Yeah, I mean, there's not much more to say to that. What is of note is that Matthew Barzal cross-checks Jan Ruda in the face. He would get a game misconduct at the end of the second. If that's a regular season situation, good chance Barzal's suspended. But it's the playoffs, so I wasn't surprised they didn't suspend Barzal. They weren't going to do that in that situation. But, you're starting to see – and the Islanders, I'm not going to call them a dirty team. I don't believe that. And I definitely did not believe that at all. Like last year's playoff run didn't have that sense at all. But I started to see this postseason. They go a little bit over the edge at times. That was one of them. But it's sometimes just a little bit more discreet. And it's a battle of attrition. I'm not so much talking about Martin and Clutterbuck. Like not so much that. That stuff is clean. I don't have a problem with any of that. But we'll talk about Game 6. So, of note, Eric Chernak was out for – Islanders' lineup the whole way through was the same. And I know Islander fans had some problems in terms of the fact that Oliver Wahlstrom didn't see the lineup. He probably should have. I mean, he definitely would have helped that power play. So I was surprised. But Tampa's lineup did change. Luke Schenn ends up playing Game 5 and 6. Chernak was out. And he would return for Game 7. So, yeah. Game 6 comes around, 3-2 Lightning are up, and Scott Mayfield right away just cross-checks him in the ribs. Just refs looking at it, doesn't call a thing, and, Mayfield gets away with it. Again, I'm not calling for a suspension by any means, but it should have been a penalty, clearly. And Kucherov's out for the rest of the game. Kucherov does not return. He's out. Things aren't looking so good for Tampa in that situation, and the one thing I keep on saying in these previews about the Islanders series is that watch out for opposing team injuries. And some of that is clean, some of that is not clean, but it's a factor. It is. That's part of their game is just, winning that war of attrition. So Lightning take a 2-0 lead, though. Brayden Point scores again, and then Anthony Cirelli makes it 2-0. So they're looking good. But the Islanders find a way to come back. Eberle scores to make it 2-1. Soon thereafter in the second. And then the third, wouldn't you know it, Scott Mayfield, public enemy number 1 in Tampa land, ties it up at 2. And then right away, and, I think the Islanders, they played well in the third to come back. Tampa kind of was sitting back a little bit. That crowd was getting into it. And in the overtime, it wasn't very long, and the Islanders dominated. Blake Coleman turns it over. Anthony Beauvillier scores. And we're headed to a Game 7. Last year was a 6-game series, which also ended in overtime. This is a 7-game series. And, it was interesting. It felt, momentum doesn't really carry over from game to game. And that was basically made true where that Game 4, everyone was talking about, Pulock. And really what people forget was the fact that it was actually 3-0, and the Islanders almost blew a 3-goal lead at home in the third. But everyone's talking about, Pulock making that save on McDonough, and then Tampa wins 8-0 the next game. It doesn't really carry over. And the home ice in Game 7, it can be important. I'm not saying it's foolproof, but it can be important. And I think it was here as well. The amazing thing is that Kucherov plays. I did not think he was going to, and he played, and he looked all right. He didn't really make much of an impact, but he looked all right. So Tampa Bay dominates the first. Absolutely just 15 shots were like 15-5, and Varlamov was the best Islander on the ice. He played great. But it was the same old thing. The Islanders getting completely outshot in these road games, especially. I'm glad that over the course of the 7-game series, the better team won. The Islanders, again, an amazing run that they were able to do what they did. It was just everything. They were doing everything that they had to get to this point. And it was incredible. But Tampa, ironically, the only goal that they scored in this game, it was a 1-0 win, was a shorthanded goal, which was a cross-check by Barclay Goodrow after the whole cross-checking thing with the Islanders cross-checking Tampa. I should also make mention that Mayfield cross-checked the shit out of Stamkos in Game 6 as well. So the one penalty is on Tampa. The Islanders were the one team in the NHL that hadn't given up a shorthanded goal all year long, and they give it up. Yanni Gourde scores. Gourde was really good. Great pass by Anthony Cirelli, another good guy for Tampa. Yeah, Not a great shift by Kyle Palmieri at all. So Palmieri's a guy who had a good first couple rounds, really fell off the map completely in round 3. And JG Pageau as well as I think Pageau is playing hurt, to be honest. But another guy really started out hot, really dropped off a lot. So yeah, that was not a great situation there for the Islanders. And Tampa holds on. The Islanders had 18 shots all night. One thing that stands out was Barzal almost, puck hops over his stick in the third. But really, Tampa it was a team that has won before. They are a different team now than they had been. It's amazing what happened where they get swept against Columbus in 2019 and 2020 and 2021. They know what to do. They know how to close out. I mean, they didn't in game 6. But again, I kind of expected the Islanders to win that game. I did, knowing that was going to be potentially the last game at the Coliseum and whatnot. But Tampa wins, so yeah, they're on to the Cup Final. They're going to be, pretty big favorites going into this against Montreal. And as far as the Canadian-Vegas series, I definitely did not expect it to go this way. Vegas was coming off beating Colorado, who many looked at as the favorite, and Vegas has had some. I mean, Vegas since their existence has been a good team. And Montreal came out of the North Division, which people talked down. In game 1, Vegas won game 1. They did. So it just can, all right, Vegas will take care of them. Not so fast. Game 2, Montreal is able to hang on for the win. They take a 3-0 lead, and they're able to hang on and win 3-2. So that's good for them. Game 3, Vegas dominated. They're up 2-1. And keep in mind, Vegas gets a lot of production from their defensemen. Pietrangelo, Theodore, Alec Martinez, so on and so forth. But Vegas didn't get a whole lot of production from their forwards. Mark Stone, Pacioretty, just not a whole lot from them. At least it felt that way. But the problem was Marc-Andre Fleury just makes a terrible, terrible gaffe and just loses the puck. I don't know what he was thinking. And he's had some brain farts in the past. This isn't the first time, but this one will stand out. And Josh Anderson ties it up. And then Josh Anderson wins it in overtime. So that's a big moment in the series where Montreal takes a 2-1 lead, where Vegas had a lot of momentum. But in game 4, Vegas is able to get it done. And they win it in overtime at Montreal. And in that one, I believe defenseman, I think it was Brayden McNabb tied it up in that one in the third, and then Nicholas Waugh wins in overtime. So it's 2-2 headed back to game 5 in Montreal. Montreal wins 4-1. It's kind of amazing. And in this one, keep in mind, Robin Leonard played game 4, played really well, and then they went back to Fleury, which to me was a little bit of a surprise in game 5, and they lost. But really the biggest problem was that Vegas just really couldn't score. And that's what you see come playoff time. Like the Islanders can't really score when it gets there. I mean, certainly against Tampa. Defense kind of wins the day. And these big physical defensemen, like if the Rangers, they're going to need that. They're eventually going to need to have that big, stable D-core that are big and physical. So Montreal, they win that game 5 in Vegas. Cole Caulfield is a young player. Like Nick Suzuki, Caulfield, there's good young players from Montreal. I'm still shocked to this point, and Carey Price is a big reason for that. But they go back to game 6 knowing that it was important. They didn't want to go back to Vegas. They would have been pumped up going into game 7. Montreal, look, Alec Martinez ties it up in the third. Alec Martinez, game-winning goal to clinch the cup for the Kings against the Rangers. Try not to think about that. But he's had a bunch of other game 7 in that year against the Blackhawks when he was on the Kings, clinching series goal for Martinez to send them to that cup against the Rangers. So he gets a big goal in the third to tie it up. But then the winner in overtime would come from Artturi Lehkonen. And Robin Leonard was back in net for this game 6. So Montreal wins it. Surprising. And Vegas has to do a bit of soul searching for sure. And Montreal's in the cup. It's crazy. So a Canadian team has not won the cup since 1993, and that team was the Canadiens. And they have a rich history. What they've done can't be just thrown away. Like, it's been incredible. They were down 3-1 against Toronto, and ever since they've won 11 out of 13 games. They're 11-2 in that span. It is pretty remarkable. And I wouldn't just say, Tampa's going to roll them. I don't think it's going to work that way. I really think this goes. My prediction is going to be Tampa Bay in 6, but it could go 7. Honestly, like if you had to ask me, do I think there's a better chance it goes 5 or 7? I'm going to lean 7, but I'm going to go Tampa in 6. That's what I think. I think they're able to get it done. It's just going to be a little weird to see again. Like these are teams that are in the same division. So what's weird is that this is going to be 2 years in a row where it's guaranteed no cup rematch. And what I mean by that is Tampa Bay played Dallas in the final last year. Because of the weird COVID year, they placed Tampa and Dallas in the same division. So naturally, no rematch. And now you have, because of the weird realignment this year, Tampa plays Montreal in the Cup Final, and the next year it goes back to the regular division. So no automatic no rematch 2 years in a row. Not that you really would expect, honestly, Montreal to even get that far next year. I think it's a team that's on the rise, so to speak, but I don't even necessarily know if they make the playoffs next year. That's just kind of how I feel. Maybe there's a little disrespect there, but right now they are on a run. And it was a big missed opportunity for the Islanders. But again, I think that they would have beaten Montreal, but that would have been kind of like a collision course of two kind of underdog stories, if you will. So, yeah, excited to see what this matchup brings. I will be rooting for Tampa just because the fact that Montreal basically had a free pass to the conference final. And when I say that, I mean, look, Canada, North Division, had that automatic berth to the Final Four. With that being said, though, to be fair, if they beat Vegas and Tampa, it would have been earned at that point. So that would be the rebuttal there. So that's absolutely fair. But I'm going to root for Tampa here and, hope to see Ryan McDonough hoist another Stanley Cup. Wish it was with the Rangers, but it's all right. So, yeah, we will see what the Stanley Cup Final holds. Again, the Lightning will be a big favorite. Don't count the Canadiens. It should be fun.